I'm so excited for our first reading lesson this year. Some of you may have me as your teacher, some of you may be in Miss Paul and Miss Brandon's room, and that's great. I'm happy to be here and help you out too as we navigate our way through this interesting time, and we're going to grow through it together, and it's going to be great. Today, we're going to go over the process of being able to choose a just right book. Now, you may ask, Miss Thompson, what's a just right book? Well, a just right book means that it's not too easy and it's not too hard. It's just right. And you may have heard that before in a very familiar book. I think that a lot of us have heard of the book. It's called Goldilocks, but today we're going to be looking at a book called Goldie Socks and the Three Librarians. So let's take a look and we'll talk about it.
Goldie Socks and the Three Librarians by Jackie Mims Hopkins. Goldie Socks and the Three Librarians, brought to us by Upstart Books. And away we go. Once upon a time, nestled deep in an enchanted forest, there lived a book-loving bear family. Papa Bear was a public librarian. Mama Bear was a school librarian, and their son, Baby Bear, was a librarian in training at the Grizzly Preschool. One morning, a little girl named Goldie Socks was on her way to school. Goldie Socks usually walked along the road, but this day, since she was running particularly late, she decided to take a shortcut through the forest. By and by, Goldie Socks came upon an astonishing sight. There, in the middle of the forest, she saw a cottage that appeared to be made of books. Goldie Socks loved books more than bears love honey, so she went up to the house for a closer look. She knocked on the door, and to her surprise, it creaked open. Cautiously, Goldie Socks peeked inside. Shelves and shelves of wondrous books lined the walls. She called out to see if anyone was home. Hello? But no one answered. Goldie Socks knew she shouldn't go in, but the temptation of all those books was more than she could bear. Get it? Bear. Once inside the cottage, Goldie Socks went straight to the shelves and began browsing through the books. The first book she pulled off the shelf was too big. In fact, it was so heavy, it fell on the floor. Goldie Socks went to another shelf, but the book she took from this shelf was too little. Then she looked through some non-fiction books and found one that was just right. Goldie Socks wandered over to another shelf and opened up a chapter book. She used the 5-finger rule to see if the book was too hard. She started with a closed fist. When she came to a word she couldn't read, she put one finger up. All 5 fingers went up while reading the first page of the book, so she knew that book was too hard for her. She tried another book, but it was too easy. Then she found a book of fairy tales that was just right. After she found several books that were just right for her, Goldie Socks began searching for the perfect place to read them. Goldie Socks looked around the room and spotted a big lazy bear recliner. She climbed up in the enormous chair and pushed back, but boom, it went back too far. She surveyed the room again, and this time she spied a poofy couch with lots of pillows. Goldie Socks sprang into the air and landed smack dab in the middle of the couch. Pillows flew everywhere. The couch was too squishy. Maybe there is a comfy place upstairs, she thought. When Goldie Socks reached the top of the stairs, she saw a tent made out of a blanket. Remember, we talked about that earlier? She crawled inside the cozy tent, opened the book of fairy tales, and began reading. Yes, this place was just right. Just right. Book tent. Around noon, the 3 librarians came home for lunch. Papa Librarian immediately noticed one of his books on the floor. "Somebody's been looking at my big books and left one on the floor," he said. Then Mama Librarian said, "Somebody's been looking at my little books and put one back on the shelf with the pages showing instead of the spine." Then Baby Librarian said, "Somebody's been looking at my nonfiction books and one is gone." Papa Librarian looked at another shelf and said, "Somebody's been looking at my hard books and left one on the top shelf." "Somebody's been looking at my easy books and put one back on the shelf upside down," said Mama Librarian. Then Baby Librarian said, "Somebody's been looking at my fairy tale books and one is gone." Papa Librarian saw that his favorite chair was not in the same position that he had left it. "Somebody's been sitting in my recliner and left it pushed back," he said. Then Mama Librarian said, "Somebody's been on my poofy couch and knocked all the pillows on the floor." The 3 librarians crept up the stairs. When they got to the top, Baby Librarian said, "Somebody's been in my cleaning tent, and there she is." Goldie Socks looked up from her book and saw the big sharp teeth of the 3 librarians smiling at her. Toothy smiles. Papa, Mama, and Baby Librarian joined Goldie Socks in the tent. Papa Librarian read a story to everyone, and it was just right. The end.
I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I love Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, and this is a pretty cool spin on it. So now that we've read about Goldie Socks and her trying to find just the right book, I'm going to help you guys know how to find a just right book for you. So first, we're going to start with these. Go ahead and write in your journal. We'll take a minute, and I want you to write choosing a book how do I choose a just right book? And then we're going to add some bullet points as we go. So I'm going to give you a second to do that, and then we'll get started. Alright, you should have had some time to be able to start writing this down in your notes so that you don't get behind. First, let's answer that first question. How do I choose a just right book? Well, there's really only 2 steps you need. The first one is we're going to pick a book. Second step, super easy, read one page. It could be any page in the book. I might choose the first page of the book, but we're gonna read just one page. Alright, so now that we've got our 2 steps, pick a book, read one page, well, what do we do with that? What do we do whenever we're reading that one page? First, if you read through that one page and you're finding that there are no unfamiliar words, you know every single word, and let's go ahead and put that for our bullet point, then that book might be a little too easy. So our if-then statements for right now are about a book being too easy. We've got our first statement. If no unfamiliar words are found, it's not challenging. It's not challenging to you. In order to learn, we've got to have challenges. And then our third bullet point is going to be, it's not interesting. Now, there are some books that may be uninteresting that are just right for you, but whenever it's not interesting and it's not challenging and there's no familiar words, then it means that it is too easy and you need to choose another book. So I'm going to write on my then statement, what I want you to do is go ahead and finish up what we've been writing so far and then draw a nice line under it so that we can separate for the next set of if-then statements. Take a second right now and do that. For our second set of if statements, we're going to fill in our first bullet point with if there are more than 5 unfamiliar words. Remember, Goldilocks used her fist as she read that book that was a little too hard, and she counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She had more than 5 words that she just wasn't sure about. That usually means it's too hard. So we're going to add that to our bullet point over here. So our second bullet point is you can't summarize the page. If you aren't able to tell me a quick summary of what you just read, then that probably means it's too hard. So, if there are more than 5 unfamiliar words and you can't summarize the page, then, like we said earlier, it was too hard for Goldilocks. It's too hard for me. It's too hard for you. This book is not a just right book. So I'm going to write, it is too hard. Which means we have to choose another book. So go ahead and take some time and catch up with us if you got a little behind. And fill this in. Now I'm going to tell you how you'll be able to tell if it's a just right book. Number 1, we're going to put in our then side, we want to know what makes a book just right. First thing is that there's a few challenging words, and that's okay. But it's not too many. It's not more than 5, and it's not just none. So we have just a few challenging words. So I'm going to add that to our anchor chart, and I need you to do that as well. Anything I write, you write too. Second, you can summarize the page. That means that it's probably just right for you. If there's a few challenging words and if you can summarize the page, the book may be just right for you. And the last but not least, the book is interesting. Now at the bottom of this, we're going to add one more thing that's super, super important, and we're going to list that in just a minute. To our last segment of our notes today, and it is, what is your purpose for reading? There's usually 3 main reasons that we read. One is to be informed. Think about what kind of things do we read to inform ourselves of something. If you thought about articles, if you thought about nonfiction books, if you thought about dictionaries, encyclopedias, Ripley's Believe It or Not, those are informational, then all of those are great examples of being informed. The second reason usually is to be entertained. So think of some of those books or some of those passages you've read that have been entertaining. What does that look like to you? What kind of titles are those as you write this down? So to entertain, while you were writing that, if you were thinking of different books that you may have read that are entertaining, and some of them could include comic books, some of them are mystery, usually fiction books, because remember, fiction is fake. Nonfiction is not fake. That's how I kind of remember. So usually fiction is going to be entertainment. Our third reason that we usually read, or an author usually writes to us, is to be persuaded or to persuade, which means that the author is trying to convince you of something or change your mind about a certain topic. One example, and I have it right here, I can show you, is this book. It's called Duck, Rabbit. And in this book, super fun, the author is trying to figure out, is this a duck? Because we have a beak here and an eye, and he's looking this way. Or is he looking this way, and these are a pair of ears, and he's a rabbit? So this book is trying to convince you one way or another. Okay, now that we have filled out our notes, I'm going to go ahead and put a picture in this video of what you should have in your journal. Don't worry if yours doesn't look just like this one. As long as you have the information, that's the important part. When we choose a book that's too hard for us, it can get really frustrating, especially when there's words that we're really not familiar with and we don't understand what they mean. It can be really frustrating and a lot of work to get through that book if it's too hard. If we choose a book that's too easy, then we're not challenging ourselves. Choosing easy books every now and then may happen whenever you're just trying to relax and read something quick, but for the most part, we want to choose books that are just right for us. We want it to be just a little bit challenging, to stretch our mind a little, challenging enough to help our mind and our reading abilities grow. So I hope that today's lesson helped you a little bit in being able to choose a just right book on your own. I hope that you take these notes and really take it and put it into practice. Before we go, I need a couple things from you. One is you are going to answer 2 exit ticket questions, and you're going to submit that to this assignment for a grade today. Before we get into that, an exit ticket usually has a question for you to answer. And what I want you to do is either you have the option of writing it in your journals. You can write it just below your notes, just label it exit ticket, or type it. We don't want you to have to write with your finger on a PDF because it can get deleted or lost. It's always good to have some sort of hard copy. That's why I definitely recommend writing it in your notes. Just in case anything happens to your technology, you will still be able to have that picture and submit it that way. And then typing it in is just easier than having to draw letters with your fingers. It makes it neater. So whichever one you choose is totally fine. The second thing is with answering questions, and we are in 5th grade now, we need to be answering in complete sentences. Now, some of us might have a harder time doing that, but that's okay. That's what me and Miss Paul are here for. We're going to help you through it. We'll have some sentence starters because sometimes it's just getting those first couple words in and then we can finish the sentence. So, now that we've talked about it, let's quickly go over those 2 exit ticket questions. Okay, the first exit ticket question is, what is a Just Right book? Notice I did it in different colors because remember we're writing in complete sentences, so I started the sentence for you. So, number 1, what is a Just Right book? Now you can write in your answer, you can use this, a Just Right book is, and then you finish the sentence. The second question is, why is it important to find a Just Right book? It is important to find a Just Right book because we want you to write the whole sentence in a complete sentence, capitalization, use a period at the end, and you're done, and you're good. You can take a picture, like I said, and submit the picture along with the picture of your notes, or you can simply type in your answer in a private comment and leave your answer there, and I can grade it that way.